Alrighty, Fish and Filtered, episode 69, here with my co-host and good friend Isaac Azout. Isaac, very special guest. Very excited to have him on. Talk a little Marlins, talk about how he got the job, his past, and man, I'm just excited to be back on here. Finally, a little schedule and pitchers and catchers too, and full squad next week. So we have a lot going on.
Yeah, the voice of the Marlins is going to be heard on 940 Wins. We're very excited to have you, Mr. Jack McMullen. Jack, thanks so much for taking the time, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm hanging out. I'm staring out at full snow coverage on the ground in Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now. It was I think 7 inches of snowfall yesterday. So I'm excited to see that slowly melt off on my way south to Jupiter. I get there Monday evening, and first day of the complex is going to be Tuesday morning. So I'm really fired up. Kevin, I'm curious, what separates special guest and very special guest? Because I wouldn't consider myself very special. Maybe just like special. I would honestly just say guest, to be honest.
No, it's a very special guest. New member of the org. We love the radio people over there, and we thought you were the right choice. So let's get it going. Just how's your off season been? Obviously, you interviewed for this job.
Yeah.
What was that process like, and when did you find out that you got it?
Yeah, process was awesome, man. It was thorough and it was awesome. I had initial conversations with John Eric Alvarez over there and Steven Strom as well, and then after the fact had some great conversations with Peter Bendix, with Caroline O'Connor, with Tiago Pinto, and a couple other members of the organization. It was great, and I got to meet with a lot of people and understand organizational direction, organizational vision, and I left super encouraged after all of those conversations. So it was something where I talked to somebody else and I got more fired up about the possible opportunity. And then I talked to somebody else and I got more fired up. And by the end, I was like, let's just do this already, man. I'm really ready to go here. And it was a tremendous process getting to know everybody within the Marlins organization and, get a feel for, where the organization is headed. And I left, again, really encouraged and really energized by the direction overall from Caroline's side to Peter's side. And man, I mentioned, on the Just Baseball show, actually, like a lot of people say a dream come true about things that like they really wanted, but may not have been an actual dream. This is like an actual dream for me. It's, 12 years old, 13 years old. You're thinking, I want to be in a big league booth. I want to be a major league play-by-play announcer. And for this opportunity, for this dream opportunity to come true with the Miami Marlins at this stage is actually a dream come true. So I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, well, you pretty much answered my next question, because with a voice like yours, you must have known at a very young age that you were going to attack this career, right?
Dude,
younger.
So I will say, got to Syracuse where like everybody goes to learn how to do this. And the way I put it is, as soon as I realized I wasn't going to be able to throw 90, it was time to figure out a different way to get to Major League Baseball. And this was the way to get to Major League Baseball. But I thought it was going to be, initially, I thought it was going to be talk radio. I thought I was going to, talk through it. And I was like, hey, Mad Dog is a cool job. Let's do that. And then I interned with WGN in 2017, and I got to sit in the back of the TV booth and watch Hawk Harrelson do his thing, and Len Casper do his thing with the Cubs, and Jay Spinetti do his thing. And I was like, this is just the coolest job ever. So started making play-by-play tapes after that. At Syracuse, there's no baseball. Like, I played club baseball, but that was the best baseball Syracuse University had to offer. So called lacrosse and football and men's and women's basketball. And I listened back to some of those games that I did, and my voice was high and there was no confidence. And I was like, what are we doing here? So I think doing it more and more probably dropped the voice a couple octaves, and we got to a place where we could hang out.
Well, you obviously are doing that. I think you're 26 years old. You're exactly my age. So what advice would you have for any young broadcasters that are trying to reach the big leagues as quickly as you did?
Attack every day. What does Jim Harbaugh say? It's like attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind or something like that. And it's really corny, but there's some truth to that. And I think you can set out each day to be intentional with something that you do. And for me, I would get up, I would listen to an inning or 2 innings, and it wouldn't just be on in the background as I was like making coffee in the morning. Like I would actually sit there and say, okay, I did this well. Why did I not do this well? Like I would hear a ball in play and it's like, I could be better at X, Y, and Z. The beauty of baseball is you get to try and make that correction 24 hours after you make the mistake. So Tuesday night, I make a mistake in the 4th inning on a ground ball to short. Wednesday morning, I get up, I listen to it, I say, okay, I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to do something better tonight. And within 10 hours, I'm sitting there doing it again. And the same situation pops up again. So I think it's really being intentional with something every single day. And also be creative, man. Like I know that I wouldn't be in this position if it weren't for, my podcast work at Just Baseball. Like that is something that has really helped kind of elevate my personal brand, and being part of that has been the joy of my baseball media career to this point. And I'm excited to balance both of those here as we enter 25.
So you mentioned in your go ahead,
Kevin.
You mentioned in the introductory video that you did on Marlins Radio that you guys are going to be doing new stuff. I know Steven also mentioned that a lot. So I mean, just give us the tease. Well, what's the new stuff that you guys are going to be trying to do now in Marlins Radio?
Yeah, new stuff. So I will say what stays the same is we're going to hold Marlins Radio to a very high standard when it comes to the broadcast of actual baseball games, right? So we're always going to strive to give you the best play-by-play coverage, and our analysts are going to be awesome. And I'm sure you guys saw the list of analysts. It's a lot of familiar faces, but new to the fold, you got Craig Minervini joining me as a secondary play-by-play voice for a good number of games, and then got AJ Ramos joining as well, who's going to be awesome. Like it's funny, every time I say his name, it just brings a smile to people's faces. It's like I'm excited to hear that guy call a game on the radio. So we're going to do fun stuff with that, and we're going to hold that to a really high standard. But I also think that we're going to look probably deeper into the minor leagues than what you've typically heard from Marlins Radio previously. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to watch Starlene Caba play with Jupiter. I'm really excited to watch Thomas White throw with Pensacola. These are things that I maybe have a greater appreciation for than your typical play-by-play announcer. So I want to keep tabs on those things. We're also going to keep pushing the Marlins Radio Network, StreamYard capabilities and podcast capabilities and everything like that. Digital content's going to be expanded as well. So it's just going to be a bunch of different kind of new school creative ways to help broadcast Marlins Radio and the product that goes along with that.
So just looking at 2025, you look at this team, a lot of good pitching still. Nonetheless, yeah. Sandy's coming back. You still have Edward, Ryan Weathers, just signed Cal Quantrill, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then Eater. Still a lot of young guys in AAA that are right there. What is your outlook on the team? I know maybe you haven't seen too much yet. I don't know how much you've seen, but you'll be down there next week. So you'll probably get a better look at that by then.
I'm excited with the youth that is on that roster. And I will say, I'll actually ask you guys a question. Is there a better game on the calendar on opening day than Sandy and Skeens?
Nope.
Dude, like I don't think it's close. I was trying to decipher this with Steven. I was like, is Scooble Yamamoto a better game? That's probably the second best pitching matchup. But even then, like I'm taking Sandy and Skeens, especially Sandy back for the first time since end of 2023. And these two could both go 8 innings on opening day, and I wouldn't bat an eye, which is unique, and it's throwback, and it's nasty stuff, and we're going to see 100 from both starting pitchers, and I'm really excited for that. But no, I think Sandy fronting an exciting rotation is the thing that I'm most looking forward to. Yuri's due back, around the All-Star break? Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see Yuri Perez. That guy is one of the bright young pitching stars in baseball, and I think he and Skeens are going to run the league for a long time. But you've also got guys hanging out in Jacksonville like a Robbie Snelling. I thought he looked awesome after the trade, and I'm excited to see Snelling make his way to the big leagues. I'm excited to see Weathers continue his big league maturation. I'm excited to see Max Meyer continue his big league maturation. And then White and Meyer are pretty darn good too, man. Major is great depth as well. So starting pitching is the thing that I think I'm most excited for. And there are some fun battles offensively, like who's going to fill out that bench? Who's going to fill out the outfield? Who's going to fill out first base? There's a lot of it feels like camp battles that I'm excited to monitor.
Yeah, absolutely. And that rotation, you mentioned it, led by Sandy Alcantara. We don't know exactly if he will be able to go his normal 200 inning plus season yet. Obviously,
Sounds like he wants to.
Yeah, I'm sure he wants. I'm sure he would throw 250 if he could. But the Marlins did make a really smart signing here with Cal Quantrill, $3.5 million, 1 year, a much needed signing for that depth. I don't think there's a bigger fan of this signing than the Just Baseball show. Give us your analysis on the Marlins' new starting pitcher. He'll probably go game 2 or 3.
Yeah, my co-host at Just Baseball, Peter Apple, was doing backflips, and he tried calling me a couple of times. I'm like, dude, I'm on a Teams meeting right now. I can't hop on the phone. But no, it's he's such a smart pitching mind, and Cal has hopped on the Just Baseball show, and I was just struck by how, I don't know, like how advanced he was in terms of feel for what he does well and what he might not do well. And even in the media availability that he had, and Kevin, I know you were there in Jupiter for that. I mean, Cal's honesty about that year in Colorado was so refreshing.
Mhm.
And in a couple of ways, right? 10 starts after the All-Star break, he had a 6.85 ERA. Okay? Like 6.85 is a 6.85 ERA, and he acknowledged that he was dealing with some minor injury issues that are in the rear view now, but he's one of those guys that has no problem saying, yeah, I struggled. I know exactly why I struggled. We're going to figure this out. On the flip side, he was really good before the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And a really good ERA in Colorado can look like a 4.13 ERA.
Yeah.
And that's what he did in, I want to say, like 17 or 18 starts before the All-Star break. So the fact that he acknowledged that he was throwing really well, even if it was a 4.13, tells me that he understands the field of pitch a little bit more than a typical guy who may just look at the ERA and say, oh, I was good, it was a sub 4. Oh, I wasn't good, it was an ERA over 4. This guy understands. And if he needs to throw the split 30% of the time, he can. If he can throw the sinker 40% of the time, he will. I'm excited to see a guy that throws like a vet added to this starting rotation.
So looking at the prospect side of things, you kind of mentioned it. Who are some guys you're looking forward to watching outside of Thomas White? We know Thomas White's the consensus #1 guy, but brought in a Starling Cabo, brought in a couple other guys in the Jake Burger trade, brought in a lot of guys at the trade deadline. So this is a completely new farm system, at least in the upper minors.
I'm excited to see Dylan Head sprint. I want to see some of the home to first times. That guy can absolutely fly. So can Amarion Boyd, who also came over in that Luzardo deal. But Kaba is the one that I'm looking at, and I'm like, what are you? I'm really excited to figure out what you are, because everything that I've read, and I watched more Clearwater Threshers baseball the final month of the season than most people, because I love that catcher in the Phillies org, Eduardo Tait. Dante Nori, their first round pick, was also really good, and he was there. But Kaba, was a guy that jumped out to me because you can clearly see the Gold Glove potential at short. How exciting is that? And that was a guy in the Dominican Summer League that was chasing sub 20% of the time. I think it was like a 15% chase rate. Those are the guys that really intrigue me, because in the DSL, a lot of guys, and like same is true in the complex league, and same is true in low A and high A too. A lot of these young guys feel the need to hit their way off the complex, hit their way up the minor league ranks. And Kaba, after signing, was in the DSL, and he was saying, you know what? They're not giving me anything to hit. I'm not going to swing. And he would get on base. He would steal bags. He would play very good defense. You can get off the complex if you're getting on base at, high 300s, low 400s clip. And I just want to see how that continues to, improve and what the final form looks like as he climbs the minor league ranks.
And what would you consider?
Sorry, Kevin. What would you consider best case scenario? Filling out wise, offensive impact wise, slugging percentage wise. What do you think that would be best case scenario for Kaba?
For Kaba, I mean, everything I've read, it seems like it would be 10 to 15 homers, which is perfectly fine if you are not whiffing too much and you're playing a high level of defense. 10 homers is I think 10 homers is doable for most guys in Major League Baseball. And if you are providing immense value pretty much everywhere else in terms of your toolbox, you're going to be a really valuable player. And I think that this guy can be a WAR accumulator. I think about, a Bryce Terang in Milwaukee, a Nico Horner in Chicago. Like, why can't Kaba be close to that?
Yeah, and the one thing, because I spoke to him yesterday, and he was like, Yeah, 70% of my preparations on defense. The other 30% is offense. Like, interesting. I've never heard a prospect say that. There's guys who say obviously they prioritize their defense, but for someone to say 70% of his workout is defense and preparation, I found interesting, and still to just to walk more than strike out and to have that approach is extremely impressive. And he has a nice swing too. It was fun to watch him yesterday, and that's a guy who I think we at Fish Off First are extremely high on too.
I think so. And, I know I saw your guys' reaction when I said 10 to 15. We also have to remember this guy is 19 years old and a young 19. Yeah, he turned 19 years old in December. So, who's to say he can't fill out a little bit more? That percentage is probably going to change over, the course of the next few years. And I bet you talk to him spring training 26 and he's sitting here saying, yeah, it's probably 70-30 offense now. But I don't know. You love the defensive focus there. And if you can lay the groundwork, if you can lay the foundation defensively at 19 years old, you're cooking with gas.
I would agree. So last thing on the Marlins really quick that I want to ask you, what would you consider, what would the team consider a successful season in 2025? Not a ton of expectations, win-loss wise, but what would you consider a successful 2025?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would say, oh, we want to win a certain number of games, and that's fine to set those, win totals. But I think clarity on what the future will look like is the really important thing with the 25 Miami Marlins. So, figuring out the offensive pieces, figuring out the pieces in the bullpen and the starting rotation that you can move to 26 and 27 and 28 with. And I love the exercise that Baseball America puts out where they put together the 2028 rotation and lineup. And I'm just thinking about, okay, what does that look like? And I feel like the goal for 25 is probably find guys that will help fill out that 2028 lineup, fill out that 2028 rotation. So I think this is a year for clarity. This is also a year, to really see this baseball operations department shine. And we're a year into the Peter Bendix experience to this point. I feel like he's laid a phenomenal groundwork, and I think that you're going to start to see some of the fruits of his labor really shine through in 2025. So that's what I'm most excited for. And I feel like that would be successful. If you see, okay, our plan is in place and we're starting to execute that plan, that's probably what a good Marlins season looks like.
Yep, we're on the same page, Jack. Well, now that you are a major league play-by-play radio announcer, I'm sure it doesn't get tired of hearing that, but who are some play-by-play announcers or broadcasters that you grew up admiring listening to?
Okay, so I kind of split it between TV and radio. On TV, I grew up watching Hawk Harrelson and Len Casper because Chicago native. Radio, I grew up listening to Pat Hughes and then Ed Farmer. So those were the Cubs and White Sox radio guys. I will say, as I've leaned deeper into the play-by-play thing, once I got to college and I was like, this is really what I want to do, and became a total broadcast dork. I think Tom McCarthy in Philly does a phenomenal job. I think the guys in Seattle do a great job. Rick Riz on radio, Dave Sims, who just took the Yankee radio job, was awesome on TV. San Francisco is one of the gold standards as well. And I think you guys can see it over my left shoulder here. This is Barry Bonds after 7:56. We go to the full screen here. This is Bonds after 7:56. And this was actually a gift from the communications director with the Indianapolis Indians, Anna Kaiser. She made it for me. And it's Bonds, obviously, but the outline is Dwayne Kuiper's call of Barry Bonds' 756th home run. So, Bassick deals and Bonds hits it high, hits it deep. It is out of here, 756. That's my favorite call that I've ever heard across sports. So it's things like that. It's brevity. I really prioritize brevity. I don't want to ramble for 45 seconds with a big moment. I want to say what I got to say and then get out and let the crowd roar, let the crowd speak. That's the broadcast dork in me that hears that and says, I want to do that. And that was the call that made me think that.
So I guess growing up, what teams and players were you a fan of?
Mark Burley is my favorite athlete of all time. Favorite game that I've ever been to. Burley was in Toronto near the end of his career. Chris Sale was at the peak of his powers with the White Sox.
Wow.
And those were my two favorite pitchers ever. And $6, I sat 5 rows up behind the visiting dugout. and I watched Burley and Sale go dueling complete games. It was a 2-1 Blue Jays win, I want to say. I think time of game was an hour and 54 minutes. And it's my favorite game that I've ever been to, because Burley would get the ball, and you guys saw it in Miami for a minute. Like, he would throw it, get the ball, throw it, get the ball, throw it. And Sale was on like that Pedro Martinez run where he was punching out 10, 11, 12 guys every single time he got the ball. So Burley, Sale, I loved Jose Quintana. Cub-wise, I've got a photo of 1-year-old me in a Sammy Sosa onesie, which was good. And that's really it. I will say I'm like the biggest D Rose fan on the face of the earth. That guy shaped my athletic fandom. So Mark Burley and Derrick Rose, my 2 favorite athletes of all time, and nobody comes close.
Yeah. Fair enough. When I was a Miami Heat fan, Derrick Rose would really make it tough.
I'm sure. And the thing is, like, you watch him, and I bet you didn't hate him. I bet you watched him.
Impossible.
I really like you. It feels
the Timberwolves or wherever he ended it. It was not hard. It was impossible to hate the guy.
Impossible. So I loved him, man.
Well, you're going to be traveling a lot this season. Obviously, I'm sure you're looking forward to that. Which ballpark, if any, are you looking forward to the most in visiting?
I've never been to Dodger Stadium, and the Dodger lore just got greater. I've never seen Ohtani play live, and I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see Sasaki throw and Yamamoto throw. So, that's probably the trip that I'm excited for. To be honest, calling a game at Wrigley, like I might get emotional. I know I'm going to get emotional on opening day, but that first game at Wrigley, I might get a little emotional just because it's Wrigley Field. It's like the cathedral for me, and Fenway's awesome, but like Wrigley was in my backyard, so I have like kind of a different level of appreciation for that. Those are the ones that jump out to me, man. There are a couple really nice ones that I've never been to. Like, I'm excited for Kauffman when that opportunity comes in Kansas City. Also because of the barbecue. Like, I'm excited to go to Arlington because I get to go to Terry Black's, and that's the best thing ever. But yeah, I would say Dodger Stadium and Wrigley are the 2 that I've got circled.
You say you've never watched Ohtani live. Isaac and I thankfully have had the pleasure, and I think, I don't know if anyone knows Isaac, but nobody knows that we left right before he went 50-50.
Oh my God.
Really? Okay, so you guys were at the game and you left early?
We were at the
game. Marlins were down, dude. The Marlins were down like 20 to. It was like that game.
I remember that game vividly. Griffin Conine with the homer on the Flaherty curveball, diving. I remember that game very well.
We saw the first home run. We saw the first 2 stolen bases. And then I had to go. Kevin left as well, and then I was watching on TV, of course, and I was listening.
And I'm on my way back, and I see my phone. I'm like, no.
Listen, I don't know what you had to do, and like, I'm sorry if it was something super serious, but like that can fall to the wayside, man. Whatever you had to do, Ohtani going 50-50, I would have sucked it up and stayed.
It was bad. It was bad, but luckily I was able to watch it. I was watching it live with Paul Severino on the call. Cool. But you're right, that was one of the lifelong regrets I will always have.
I have many of those.
So I will tell you, I think it was Jim Tome's 500th was a walk-off, if I'm not mistaken, or it was a late game go-ahead homer, and it was in Chicago. I went with my dad and my younger brother, and my younger brother was at the age where if it was the 6th inning and he said he really wanted to go to bed, we were going home. So he was like, God. Dad, we got to go. Like, I'm really tired. I want to go to bed. So we're leaving. We're listening to the radio, and Tome hits his 500th homer, and I do think it was a walk-off homer. And my dad like smacks the steering wheel. He was so angry, and I was sitting in the back. Like, I think I cried. I was like, why are we not there? So I understand that sensation.
Yeah, well, it's also like a win-win because you're also getting to listen to it live on the radio. I know I'd always talk about it with my dad. Like, oh, we leave early. It's okay. We get to listen to Kyle or whoever's on the radio. It's also just as nice, but I'm with you. It's frustrating to not be there, especially for the 50-50 when it happened in Miami.
Yeah.
That's a bad one.
51 off of Vidal Brujan. So
yeah, that's right. It was a good pitch, right? It was like 89 painted on the corner that he got the best of.
Yeah, that pitching box score is going to go down as one of the funniest box scores for the Marlins last season because it was.
What was it? Was it no outs and like 4 runs?
Something like that.
Yeah. Because the thing was, like, Miami was down like, geez, they were down after like 2 or 3 innings. So I was like, all right, let's see what Ohtani's got, and we left. So I regret that one.
And then something to remember is that Skip Schumacher faced him. He did not put Shohei on. Skip said, "No, we're gonna let Ohtani hit. That is disrespectful to the game if he didn't."
I love that move from Skip. I remember that again. I remember this game very, very vividly, and everything that Skip was saying. Skip had a ton of respect for Ohtani, and I thought that was it was an awesome day of baseball. The cliche baseball won that day. I think baseball did win that day.
Yeah,
100%.
and Joe Davis couldn't have called it any better, in my opinion.
That was masterclass.
That was the epitome. And whenever you do, well, I guess the Marlins do go to Dodger Stadium, obviously, this year. I went for the first time as media a few years ago, and man, it is Chavez Ravine. There's nothing like it.
I'm really
every single award, every single Gold Glove, every single Silver Slugger, MVP award. It's all right there and outside the clubhouses. It's a wonderful ballpark.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool, man.
Last one we got for you, at least, is what's the craziest game you've called?
Craziest game I've called. Man, that's a good question. To be honest, like there haven't been too many where I'm like, this is absolutely insane. I will say non-baseball. I was on a couple of Syracuse football games that were notable. Like I was on the game that got Bobby Petrino fired at the University of Louisville, which I thought was hilarious. AJ Dillon, the Packers running back, ran for like 250 and 3 touchdowns, and he got the Syracuse DC fired, which was funny. But no, baseball wise, I called a no-hitter remotely. It was COVID. It was COVID time, beginning of the 22 season. It was like my 5th or 6th game ever calling with AAA Indianapolis in 2022. And we were sitting there, empty ballpark calling a game. I think it was in St. Paul. It was like 38 degrees at time of first pitch in St. Paul. And, we're sitting there, empty ballpark, game on mute. We're calling it. And a no-hitter being thrown, like you have to try and get up and like create this energy that's just not there. Yeah. And that was probably the most unique broadcast experience I've ever had, is a no-hitter remotely on like a 38-degree day when like nobody was at the ballpark in St. Paul either.
Of course. I have to ask, how difficult is it to call a game remotely?
It's weird. I will say, minor league baseball, you guys watch a ton. Like some of those telecasts are not awesome. So, you'll be sitting there and you'll get this shot of a fan eating a hot dog, but then you see on Gamecast that it was a fastball low and away for ball 2. And it's like, okay, I guess there was a pitch just then. It's unique. It's not horrible, but I will say I'm really excited to get back on the road with the Marlins and travel with them and get to be there and get to know the guys. That's I think the thing that I miss the most, when calling games remotely is, you just don't get to be around the guys every day, and that's one of my favorite parts of this game. So I'm excited to be around those guys for all 162.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty fun team. Good personalities so far, at least. So, Jack, we really appreciate you, man. We're excited to see you. I'll see you next week. Isaac, I know we'll see you on Tuesday, I want to say. So,
cool.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much. And Isaac, anything else you got for Jack, or we're good to go?
No, sir. Thank you so much for coming on, Jack. I know you're a busy man, and just drive safe. Can't believe you're driving to Miami.
Yeah, it's wild. I'll listen to Fish Unfiltered. It'll be great. But hey, appreciate you guys. Thanks a ton.
All righty. From Jack, Isaac, and myself, we see you guys all in 2 weeks. Peace out and go fish.